What's up, everybody? Today I want to talk about why I believe this stuff right here is the perfect human food. Not necessarily mangoes in particular, although I do love them. I'm just talking about fruit in general. Delicious. Simply the fact that it's delicious on its own is one great point, but let's look into more scientific ways of proving this. I have been eating a fruit-based diet for about 5 years now. I think that's enough time to qualify myself as somebody who can say, at least for me, this is the perfect food. And I have some evidence that might say it might be a great food for you as well, and other humans. So, alright. So one thing they don't teach you in school is that we are classified as frugivores. We are not classified as omnivores or herbivores or carnivores. We are classified as frugivores, which is a term that most people don't even know, have never heard in their entire lives, which is very strange considering that's what we are. Like I said, it's not taught to us in school. It's quite strange that it's not taught to us in school, but it's true. The creator of the modern method of taxonomy, which is species classification, said that we're frugivores due to our tiny little canines and our long digestive systems and our lack of sharp claws and teeth. We are classified as frugivores. We are most like our close relatives, the great apes, the chimpanzees, and the bonobos, who are also classified as frugivores. That's one thing that's pretty hard to argue with. A lot of people will say, oh no, we're actually omnivores because we can eat all this stuff, or we're starchivores because we're eating a lot of starch, but it really has nothing to do with what we are eating or can eat or can tolerate, what our bodies can somehow convert into energy. It has to do with what we are designed to eat, and that is clearly fruit. We can pick the fruit, we can climb the tree, we can peel the fruit, we can eat the fruit, we can easily digest the fruit due to our digestive systems. But if you look at meat or starch or anything like that, we can't do it without tools. We have to have tools to kill the animal, tools to skin the animal, tools to cook the animal. And with starch, we have to cook the starch in order to make it digestible. So meat and starch, nah, not really. We're not really starchivores, and we're not really carnivores, or omnivores for that matter. Frugivores, on the other hand, yes. I am using a spoon right now, but that is just so I don't look like a super dirty freak by the end of this video. Mango all over my face, which I usually do look like after lunch. But now let's look at fruit. Fruit is the perfect ratio of nutrients for us. It has a high water content. It's the only food on the planet that has enough water to fully digest itself without dehydrating us. Think about this. You eat a piece of bread, or you eat some crackers or toast or something like that, and it just goes in so dry, but it comes out not so dry, hopefully. It comes out nice and hydrated. Where is all that water coming from? Well, it's coming from us. It's dehydrating us in order for us to even digest it. So fruit does not do that. Score 1 for fruit. It does not dehydrate us. It, in fact, hydrates us. It has other perfect ratios of nutrients. It has a great ratio of macronutrients, protein, carbohydrate, and fat. It has a very similar protein content to what we have in baby's breast milk and mother's breast milk, which is the food we should be eating as infants and toddlers. It has about 0.8% protein to 4% protein. Some fruits have quite high percent protein, but breast milk has 0.8 to 0.9% protein. It has very low protein, and that's a point in our lives that we are growing rapidly, extremely rapidly, yet we don't need all that extra protein. Excess protein is actually damaging to us. So, perfect protein ratio for humans. Plus it's just delicious. Speaking of breast milk is slightly sweet, and if it's any indication of what we should be eating in the future, it's a great indication because it's sweet. It's getting us ready for sweet foods. Anna Osborne talks about this in her book. Anna Osborne is a fruitarian. She's been eating fruit for 25 years. She has a lot of great points in that book. It's called Fruitarianism, A Path to Paradise. Highly recommend getting it. So, in that book, she talks about cows and how their breast milk is savory. It is not sweet. Cow's breast milk, you guys might know it as milk. We just sort of shorten it down to milk. But really, it's a cow's breast milk. It's made for a baby calf. And it's savory. And what do cows eat later on in life? They eat grass, and that is also savory. So perhaps these breast milks are indicators of what we should be eating later on in life. Sweet foods for humans. Fruit. Delicious. This is my breakfast. It should be lunch. I kind of skipped breakfast today. But sweet. Isn't it too sweet? Doesn't it have too much sugar? Isn't that bad for us? Isn't that gonna rot our teeth? Isn't that gonna give us diabetes? No, it's not. Because refined sugar, this is not refined sugar. This has water and fiber and minerals and vitamins and everything the body needs to digest it in a perfect little package. So relative to the sugar is minerals that it takes to digest the sugar, and fiber that helps to regulate the blood sugar. It regulates the amount of sugar going into our bloodstream so it doesn't cause spikes in blood sugar. Fruit has a actually quite low glycemic load. Because it has the fiber in the water, it does not rank high on the glycemic load, nowhere near to what rice or potatoes rank. Rice and potatoes, although they contain no simple sugars, are actually much higher up on the glycemic load because they don't contain the fiber and they just go straight into your bloodstream like fucking heroin into an addict's fucking veins. So if you like potatoes, I'm not trying to like say potatoes are bad or starch is bad or anything like that. I'm just trying to say we're frugivores and we're not starchivores, and I'm sorry, Dr. McDougall, but no, that's just ridiculous. If anybody doesn't know, the argument is that, hey, look, all these cultures around the world are eating starch. They're all eating starch. The Chinese are eating rice, and the Native Americans are eating corn, and the Peruvians are eating potatoes, and it's all starch, therefore we are starchivores. Well, that's not actually how it works. You look up starchivore on the internet, there is no scientific paper written on starchivorism. What you do find is starchivore t-shirts that he sells, though. That's not how it works, Dr. McDougall. We are not classified by taxonomy based on what we currently eat or what we currently can digest. We are based on it by our anatomy, our physiology, our biochemistry, and they all point perfectly to a fruit-based diet. Tell me this, if potatoes and rice were so perfect for us, why do we have to put them into high heats for a very long time in order to even digest them? It just doesn't make any sense, you know? But this video is not against Dr. McDougall or anything like that. I have nothing against him. I'm just saying he's wrong. So, now that we know fruit is not going to give us diabetes, think about this. Fruit is really the only food that we can just pick out there and eat a whole huge meal of it and feel great and satiated and energetic without adding anything to it, you know? We don't have to have herbs and spices. We don't have to have salt or sugar or anything added to them in order to make them delicious and nutritious and enjoyable. So point number 3 or 4 or whatever I'm at right now is that fruit is perfect on its own. You don't have to cook it in order to make it delicious. It gives you all the energy you need by just eating it. You don't have to do anything to it. You don't have to cook it so it's digestible. You don't have to add anything to it so it tastes good. It's perfect as it is, and you can sit there and eat it until you're satiated, which you can't do with rice. I mean, I don't know anybody that just eats rice, and if they do, that is absolutely miserable because it's basically a tasteless substance. Starch is, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's a tasteless substance, much like glue, and that's how it acts inside of us. It's just tasteless, and you need salt and herbs and spices and all these things to even make it into a food. This is already a food. It's just so obviously a food. You know, it's delicious. And the other cool thing about it is this. So what fruit is a fleshy substance surrounding a seed. And the flesh is usually sweet, and the seed is usually viable. If it's not, it's because we've hybridized it so much that it's toast, you know. Its shelf life mattered more than its actual ability to reproduce to us, because we've lost our desire to be in the symbiotic relationship that we are meant to be in. The symbiotic relationship that allowed this fruit to evolve, to allow us to eat and spread its seed. You following me? The tree produces the seed and actually puts a lot of energy into creating this sweet, fleshy, nutritious substance around the seed, so we are attracted to it. So we eat it and disperse the seed, you know? We pick it up and carry it off somewhere else and plant the seed. Either the seed goes through us or we just throw it out like I do with these mangoes. This is called a symbiotic relationship. It means that both parties benefit. The seed, the tree benefits from us helping it reproduce, and we benefit by getting sustenance. Delicious, delicious sustenance. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's still possible today, and we could solve so many of our problems if we just realized and returned to this relationship that we are designed to have with nature. People are like, oh yeah, composting is good, but think if they realized that everything that they ate could turn into a fucking forest that would feed them, you know? All we have to do is plant this stuff. All we have to do is return to this relationship. All we have to do is stop squelching on our deal, as Ann Osborne says. They gave us the ability to thrive. And you know what we do to that? Nothing. We don't give back. We just eat it, we take, and we stop giving. You know, we're being parasites. Rather than being symbiotic, we're being parasites. We're taking and taking and taking and not giving anything. Yet we don't realize that giving is exactly what we need to do in order to keep receiving what we're taking, in order to keep the abundance flowing. So all we have to do is plant the seed and we get more of the fruit. You reap what you sow. I think once you realize that, not only is that a great life lesson metaphor for everything, you know, you reap what you sow, you get what you give, but it just makes life so much more simple, you know, like all of a sudden we don't need to have a monetary system, we don't need to have jobs, we don't need to have anything that we humans are currently enslaved by. What we do have to do is just plant a fucking seed and eat fruit, you know? All we have to do is return to the relationship with nature that we should have had our entire existence. But something happened, and I guess I'll tell you what I think happened. I think we just left the forests of Africa, and probably against our will, probably because some sort of climate event. You know, the Ice Age happened about 200,000 years ago, and the forests were shrinking, so we had to go find food elsewhere. Or maybe we were just curious and we wanted to see what's outside of the forest. That's probably not a very good theory, because in order to do that we would have to be taken away from everything that we know, and we'd have to learn how to create fire and cook potatoes and eat animals and do all these things that are just not natural for us or not healthy for us, really. But we did it, so I believe we were probably forced to do it. We probably had to do it. We probably had dwindling food resources or something like that. Or maybe the gorillas got sick of our shit and they kicked us out, you know? Who knows? But what we do know is that we left, and we thankfully learned how to harness fire and eat potatoes and starches and animals in order to survive. And that's how we got here today. We encircled the entire globe, and we created all this crazy stuff. Now you can see me on the internet with all these crazy things. This is because of fire and fucking starch. It really is. And eating animals, all this stuff. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's something that happened that doesn't need to happen anymore. And yeah, it's awful. It is a bad thing. It's terrible. Killing things, if anything's bad, killing things is bad. And that needs to stop. But I'm not going to try to say that people are bad people because they're doing it. This is how we've been taught. This is how we've been raised to do this. We've been raised to eat meat because it's healthy, because we need complete proteins and all this other bullshit the animal agriculture has been feeding us since we're little kids. What's awesome is that it's totally not necessary. It's a lie. And it sucks that we've been lied to, but here's the truth. Now do with it what you will, you know? It's amazing. Just don't ignore the truth. Don't fucking kill the messenger. Don't be mad at the vegan person because they showed you a slaughterhouse, you know? Don't be mad at the fruitarian because he said that we're not starchivores, you know? What I'm trying to say is that we humans have been fucking up for a long time, and we don't have to be. And all we have to do is realize that we don't have to be, and there's another symbiotic solution. There's another solution, and it's symbiotic, and that's why this channel exists out there, is to show you this symbiotic solution, to eat fruit and plant the seed. I don't know what else to say. So please like and share this video. subscribe if you haven't already, and eat fruit and plant their seeds. I'm gonna eat all this now. Peace. P.S. No, humans did not get their large brains because of meat and starch. There's no evidence that shows that our brains started growing once we got fire and once we started eating meat and starch. There's a mountain of evidence that shows that it started growing because of this stuff right here. One independent researcher named Tony Wright, who I highly recommend looking him up, TonyWright. He has written a book with his friend Graham Ginn called Left in the Dark and Return to the Brain of Eden. Those are two different book names. Read those books, then you will understand, but if you don't want to read those books, I'll tell you what's up. Basically, fruit grew our brains. Fruit contains biochemistry that is steroid inhibiting, and these phytochemical steroid inhibitors basically lengthen the developmental window of the brain. It's the prenatal and prepubescent developmental windows of the human brain and other things, but we're talking about the brain right now. So the more fruit we ate, the more our developmental windows were lengthened, the longer our juvenile period was. My wife just walked by naked. I don't know if you could see it, but
no, because could they see it?
I don't know, we'll see. Anyway,
Sorry.
Fruit here contains steroid inhibitors, and what steroid inhibitors do is they cause our DNA to be read a little bit differently. Because as we all know, when we hit puberty, us guys get a bunch of testosterone in us and we start squeaking and we start growing hair all over the body and all sorts of stuff happens. And those steroids is what really creates puberty. So think about this. If we had steroid inhibitors, we have things that are changing the way our DNA is read. They're making puberty come later, or they're making the developmental windows while we're still in utero. They're allowing for more development, more growth, more support of this neural system to grow larger and smarter, and that's what all the evidence seems to point at. This idea that our brains grew because we are eating starch and meat makes absolutely no sense, and in fact when it comes to meat it makes opposite sense, because meat has a lot of steroids in it. All meat would do would be to shorten the developmental windows, and that's very likely why we're seeing so many women hitting puberty at such young ages nowadays. Our developmental windows are shortening. Our brains are literally shrinking. Our brains have been shrinking for the last 200,000 years. And if you remember that number, it's about the time when we started leaving the forest, getting away from the fruit. So once you start to realize this, you start to realize that not only did the meat and the starch allow us to travel the world and conquer the earth, but it pretty much fucked us up along the way. If what I'm saying just sounds absolutely insane, believe me, there's a lot of science to back it up. Just read these books that I talked about. So meat is literally making our brain shrink, and fruit can actually literally make your brain grow, in theory. So eat more of it, and don't forget to plant its seed, and like and subscribe. Peace. Species classification said that we're frugivores due to our tiny little canines and our long digestive systems and our lack of sharp claws and teeth. We are classified as frugivores. We are most like our close relatives, the great apes, the chimpanzees, and the bonobos, who are also classified as frugivores. That's one thing that's pretty hard to argue with. A lot of people will say, oh no, we're actually omnivores because we can eat all this stuff, or we're starchivores because we're eating a lot of starch, but it really has nothing to do with what we are eating or can eat or can tolerate, what our bodies can somehow convert into energy. At least for me, this is the perfect food, and I have some evidence that might say it might be a great food for you as well, and other humans. So, alright. So one thing they don't teach you in school is that we are classified as frugivores. We are not classified as omnivores or herbivores or carnivores. We are classified as frugivores, which is a term that most people don't even know, have never heard in their entire lives, which is very strange considering that's what we are. Like I said, it's not taught to us in school. It's quite strange that it's not taught to us in school, but it's true. The creator of the modern method of taxonomy, which is look like super dirty freak by the end of this video. Mango all over my face, which I usually do look like after lunch. But now let's look at fruit. Fruit is the perfect ratio of nutrients for us. It has a high water content. It's the only food on the planet that has enough water to fully digest itself without dehydrating us. Think about this. You eat a piece of bread or you eat some crackers or toast or something like that, and it just goes in so dry, but it comes out not so dry, hopefully. What's up, everybody? Today I want to talk about why I believe this stuff right here is the perfect human food. Not necessarily mangoes in particular, although I do love them. I'm just talking about fruit in general. Delicious. Simply the fact that it's delicious on its own is one great point, but let's look into more scientific ways of proving this. I have been eating a fruit-based diet for about 5 years now. I think that's enough time to qualify myself as somebody who can say, gee, it has to do with what we are designed to eat, and that is clearly fruit. We can pick the fruit, we can climb the tree, we can peel the fruit, we can eat the fruit, we can easily digest the fruit due to our digestive systems. But if you look at meat or starch or anything like that, we can't do it without tools. We have to have tools to kill the animal, tools to skin the animal, tools to cook the animal. And with starch, we have to cook the starch in order to make it digestible. So meat and starch, nah, not really. We're not really starchivores, and we're not really carnivores, or omnivores for that matter. Frugivores, on the other hand, yes. I am using a spoon right now, but that is just so I don't